Das war das Panel mit dem Namen Green Sponsoring. Wenn ihr Kritik oder Fragen habt, dann schreibt uns gerne unter www.futureoffestivals.com. Wir sehen uns spätestens am Donnerstag, den 27. und Freitag, den 28. November 2025 in der Station Berlin. Bis dahin.
The impact of festival production shows and conferences.
Viel Spaß beim Zuhören. Mehr Informationen und Tickets findest du unter www.futureoffestivals.com.
Hello everyone, welcome to our panel. I'm Teodora Murăreanu from Jazz in the Park, a festival from Cluj-Napoca, Romania. I'm in the industry since 2018. I worked as a volunteer and now I'm doing social media and communication for the festival. But here with me, I have two people who have even more experience in the background. So now we are going to find more information about the conference and the production shows that they are organizing. So here we have Laurie, who is the president and founder of Fest Forums, a conference from New York, from San Francisco, most precisely Santa Barbara, was launched in 2015, so 9 years ago. It's a B2B conference focusing on music, film, food, and wine festival organizers, focusing also on how to improve the fan, attendee, talent experience, ticketing, sponsorship, talent buying, programming, sustainability, safety, marketing, and all the things related to the festival industry. And what I found really interesting is that some people say that they attend many conferences where they shake hands, but here at Fest Forums, they hug a lot of friends. And this was wholesome because it's a conference that people feel really comfortable to be in. And let's recall some festivals that attended. We'll have Coachella, Sundance, TIFF, Woodstock, Glastonbury, Lollapalooza, Burning Man. These are the festivals that I found really interesting and that I know about, but I'm sure that you had even more. So thank you for being here and hope we will find many interesting things from your experience. And we have Johnny Lance, event director of Showman Show from UK, most comprehensive outdoor event industry exhibition. And it's from 1984, 40 years ago. That's a lot. And it's focusing on innovation and sustainability, helping events to move toward net zero, which is really beautiful and everybody needs it. It's free to attend and people can come there to discover the latest innovations, things that they can bring to their festivals, doesn't matter the country that they are from. So let's start. And my first question is, how come you decided to start working in this industry?
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Can you hear us okay? Yeah, good. Thank you for that. I originally in the U.S. was an attorney, and as an attorney, we're required to have professional development. And then I switched gears because I was desperately trying to get out of practicing law into running festivals. And then when I saw what a cluster so many of them were, I thought perhaps it might be interesting to find a collective. You see, in the U.S., there's not the same sort of organized trade shows and conferences as there are here. And so it was a way for me to bring these festivals together who all know each other but have never worked together. So I went to the leaders of Vans Warped Tour and Coachella and Sundance and all of these major festivals because I had worked with all of these leaders. And hence it was born out of that desire to give them education, collaboration, networking, and also a trade show. Not quite on this scale yet, but so that was the genesis of the conference.
My story is probably a little bit more simple. The show was set up by my parents back in 1984.
Nepotism.
I was just about to say, it's pure nepotism. That's how I fell into it. So they set it up in 1984. I joined the business back in 2011. And basically they were looking to retire, so an opportunity came up to work for the family business. After spending most of my youth saying I'll never ever work for my parents, but as they were kind of moving out, I thought, well, actually maybe this is a good time. I was working in the TV advertising industry at the time. That was going through a hard moment post financial crash, and so I was looking for a new career basically. And there's a lot of transferable skills between TV production and event organising. So I jumped ship and joined the family firm to do my time. But I haven't looked back. It's great. It's a great industry to work in. I've always been really inspired with basically the companies involved, basically, and the work that goes involved into making events. And it's lovely to be a part of that.
That's really nice. And I feel that the festival industry is an industry where everybody can join, doesn't matter their background, so you'll find something that you can use the background information that you have. So the next question is, what do you think is the festival scenes now in US compared to UK? How is it right now with the festival industry?
Sorry. In the UK, the festival industry and wider event industry has had a real is struggling. They've costs since COVID. The costs to put on festivals have gone up anything between 30 to 50%, and coupled with the cost of living crisis, people aren't spending as much money on tickets. So, in the past, where people might go to more than one festival a year, they might go to 3 or 4, they may be just choosing to go to one. So a combination between cost to actually put on an event going up, as well as ticket sales going down, has produced a really tricky market. There's an association in the UK called the Association of Independent Festivals, which has been rather kind of gloomily, I suppose, reporting all the cancellations this year, and we're up to now over 70 cancellations of independent festivals this year. There was 30 last year, and then 100 before that. So there's a real kind of decline. But so everyone's a bit kind of nervous and a bit kind of skittish. But then having said that, on the flip side, there are festivals still doing really well. The ones with loyal followings, things like Glastonbury. There's events in Wales called the Green Man Festival. They're selling tickets out within a morning, within hours. So there is still an industry there. It's still doing well, and it's got a loyal following. And also to note, actually, a lot of the festivals that have cancelled this year or last year, they are actually reinventing themselves. So they've actually, there was an announcement literally just this week of a festival that cancelled called Shindig, but they've now just launched a new festival for 2025. So I think it's a case that maybe people are reevaluating what they're up to, basically, and reevaluating their festivals.
Well, because the U.S. is so massive and there are so many festivals, and generally most of them are put on by Live Nation or AEG, even though there is a contraction within the industry, it's still very robust. We are not dependent we're not lucky enough to receive any kind of government funding for any of our festivals. And so they're really dependent upon sponsorship or ticket sales. And so we're seeing a contraction, but because it's such a robust and large industry, even if they fail for a variety of reasons, the talent has gotten very expensive. And because post-COVID, the talent got extremely expensive, but never went down in price at all, because of the cost of goods and supply chain issues and lack of ticket sales. It's really hurt the industry overall. That being said, there are always new promoters out there who are willing to give it a go. And so even though the media likes to report we're failing and that Coachella didn't sell out and so forth, there are many festivals that are doing quite well, particularly those who understand their audiences And that's truly where the industry is moving, towards more niche festivals that understand who is in the audience and how to relate to that audience. So there's no one size fits all for our industry, and it's complicated. But that's part of the reason why I do what I do, is to give the tools to these promoters so that they do make good decisions and create profitable ventures.
That is really, really true with the tickets. That basically all the festivals are surviving based on the tickets that people they are buying, and we have this problem also in Romania right now. Now that we talked about presence, let's look back a little bit. And do you recall how many people you had at the first year of your conference? How is it? Can you compare a growth? How many people you had in the first one versus how many people you have now?
Well, when I first came up with the idea, nobody knew who we were. So I remember creating our lists and putting all my children's friends on it to inflate the numbers a little bit. But now we're up to 700-800. It's still a small event, but it's very executive based. In other words, if you came, like John Giddings, who owns the Isle of Wight Festival, is being given an award by Arthur Fogel. Those are probably two of the biggest names in the festival industry. So I like to talk really about, I don't want to say quality, but the level of the people that are there. It's truly an executive event. So it'll be the directors from all of the major festivals, as I said before, like Coachella and Lollapalooza and Vans Warped Tour and Burning Man, but also Sundance, Essence Fest, Summer Fest. These are the largest festivals in the United States. And so I'm very proud that they feel they want to be part of this event. So right now we're not at this level, but we're continuing to grow.
But I've seen a photo with Quentin Tarantino.
Yes.
He attended your conference.
Yes, he did. He came to talk about the state of the industry, and we've had Jack Johnson and many other amazing thought leaders. We had the Coen brothers there, which was quite a coup because the Coen brothers don't go anywhere.
I love their movies. When's the next film coming out? Do we know?
Yeah, Johnny, what about you? Do you recall?
Yeah, well, I think I was literally just out of nappies back in 1984, but no, when it first started, it was really small. I mean, there was about 60 companies exhibiting, and then maybe about 200 event organisers and suppliers, obviously, visiting. Now we see anything between 290 companies exhibiting up to 330 companies exhibiting. And then 4,000, around between 4,000 and 5,000 exhibitors. Visitors. But So I mean, that's kind of what it is now. So I mean, we were a little bit bigger before COVID. Obviously, COVID, affected our industry quite heavily. So we're still kind of rebuilding back up after COVID to its former glory.
But I know that after COVID, also the mentality of people changed and their behavior, so this impacted a lot of festivals in the attended. Now I want to ask you, considering that a festival needs a year to grow, this is why I asked how many people were in the first year versus how many people are now. And during this period of time, I'm sure that you encountered with businesses that were in their entry level. And I want to ask you if you recall some beautiful stories about a business that you've seen growing thanks to attending your conference or your production show.
I do have one company. It was kind of funny. He came to me called Concerto, and he came up with the idea that he would have chairs available, which would eliminate a lot of issues regarding, sterilizing chairs. This was right post-COVID. And also the event promoter having to produce the chairs and so forth. And he gave me his deck, and he had included that, he had Coachella and all. And I said, do you? And he said, no. And I said, don't do that. But he gradually built his company, and because of Fest Forums, he runs a very successful company now. He had been a very successful business person, and this was just born out of an idea of going to ACL, which is Austin City Limits. and then created this business. But yeah, a lot of partnerships have grown and festivals have grown since we've started. It is like a family reunion when people get together and you see the collaborations that have come out of it, the friendships that have been made. We've had, I think, a few romances. And it's been really wonderful to see the growth that has been created out of the show. So yes, there are a lot of lovely sort of partnerships between sponsors and festivals doing collaborations. Tribeca Film Festival did a collaboration with New York Food and Wine Festival. So, I mean, and which is the whole point of what we do.
Yes, you basically have a network for all the important things that a festival needs to have. So I bet that the connections that people establish there are really powerful and are helping them a lot.
Oh yeah.
What about you, Johnny? Do you recall successes?
There's been loads, but I think one that kind of comes to mind now is actually something that we're witnessing at the moment. It's a lovely company called Pequal, which is it's a female urinal. This is the UK's first female urinal. It's not a new concept. I know that there's a French company and a Danish company that kind of came up with the idea first. But Pequal is our first UK female urinal, and they've been with us for 4 years. And they basically the first time they exhibited with us was they basically just built a prototype. So they literally there's 2 students out of Bristol University. They came up with this lovely idea, and they brought it to the show. And they've been with us ever since, and they've grown, rather rapidly, to be honest. So, where they quoted this year, where the conversations have changed from, oh, what's this? What are you doing here? You know, to how many have you got? You know, we need you for the London Marathon. We need you for Glastonbury. We need you for this festival. So they've, so in 4 years, they've kind of like from little prototype, you know, in a field in Berkshire where we hold our event. To the streets of London for the London Marathon and to Glastonbury Festival. So yeah.
Well, for anyone who's been to Glasgow and knows the long drop, having the female urinals is very critical. Coincidentally, I'm having dinner in Copenhagen tomorrow night with the woman who created the one
Gina,
in Denmark. Yes.
Lappy, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Small world.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, no, say hi because if she may remember me, but.
Love it.
Yeah, that's really lovely.
Yeah.
And that's about my question. The next one, I want to ask about the people that you meet, the people that are representing the other festivals. Did you notice what's the difference between the entry level festivals and the bigger one? Are the same people? Have you seen a change in their team, or are the same people attending?
I know in the US, since COVID, a lot of people dropped out of the festival industry because they work so hard for so little money. Not to discourage any of you out there, but if you don't get into the industry for a quick buck, it's a lot of hard work. And a lot of people left the industry. And that made it very hard to rebuild my company because so many of my contacts were gone. You know, I had a great partnership with Delta Airlines for, the entire time. And all the people had been forced to retire because the airlines basically went out of business during COVID. And so I've had to rebuild it. And same with the festival. The festival leaders of the big festivals stayed in the business. And partly it was because the U.S. government gave us huge grants. First time, last time ever. Particularly now. Don't get me started. But we just had an election, in case you guys didn't know. And so, there's been a huge turnover in the business. And part of my goal is to create that level of continuity so that you have the professionalism. It's really important. The safety of the patrons are the most important thing. No matter what anyone says, the only thing that matters is the safety of the patrons. And so that's something one who works at festivals always has to keep in mind, that at the end of the day, if everyone doesn't go home safely, then you failed. The rest of it doesn't really matter. So having a professionalized staff is really important. And yes, there is quite a bit of turnover, but we're seeing it a little more professionalized. I don't know if you are in the UK, but it used to be more roadies. You know, people would leave high school and get in the business, and now people are being trained much better, and so we're seeing people stay in the business longer.
The Showman show attracts half our audience is the supply chain. They're looking for manufacturers that exhibit there, but obviously the other half are event organisers. And certainly what we see when it comes to festivals is that if it's a new festival, we'll see the organisers themselves. You know, when you're starting a festival, it's all very hands-on. You're fulfilling many roles, from being the band manager. You know, you're laying in the infrastructure. You're doing everything. But as the festivals grow, or they get absorbed into the bigger organisations such as Live Nation or Festival Republic, you start seeing we start seeing the production managers, so the people who are just solely responsible for certain areas of putting on a festival, such as the infrastructure or the campsites. We're also seeing a lot more sustainability managers now. I mean, there's pretty much every event has a sustainability manager, but that's probably because of our focus on sustainability at the show. It's a good place for them to come and learn and pick up some bits and bobs. So.
Are there more regulations with sustainability that are coming into play in Europe and the UK?
No, well, I mean, we all have, like, as a nation, we've all signed, you know, as a country, we've signed up, you know, to reduce our emissions. So as citizens of the UK, we are all responsible, but there's no kind of legal obligation as such. Well, as a company, but there's definitely a cultural obligation, a social obligation. Everyone needs to be doing their bit. So, I mean, if you're an event that's not addressing it or looking at your sustainability impact, your environmental impact, then you really should, you know. But yeah, so this is a self-governing, if you like, self-governing.
Yeah, and talking about sustainability, I wanted also to ask you how hard or easy is to implement sustainability in the festival industry, because I know that both of you are focusing on this.
I mean, the reality is it's more expensive to be sustainable, but that doesn't mean you don't do it. And it's getting better. I mean, there are more battery-powered stages, and there are certain people like the Jack Johnsons and Billie Eilish who have made that part of their rider. And so they're at the forefront of making it happen. And once you implement a lot of those things, it becomes easier as you move forward. But certainly, if you go to these major festivals, like if you've been to Glastonbury, the amount of trash that's created is just horrifying. And the carbon footprint of the festival industry is pretty horrific. And so there are certain things like ride sharing, which are easier to implement than some of the other things, like, you know, I can imagine just the carbon footprint of a show like this is incredible, but you can do step and repeats that, you know, are recyclable, and obviously all your glassware and things of that nature. But you have to be thoughtful about doing it. It requires people to sort the trash and make sure that you're using sustainable items and all of that. So there's a mindfulness to it, which is why there are sustainability managers. But as, you know, stewards of the planet, it's our obligation to be mindful of that, particularly since festivals, part of our sort of our mission is to improve our planet. So I support it.
And I think actually, I mean, some things are going to be easier than others, and it really depends on the type of event you are. I mean, and it's also important to recognise that there's no one solution fits all. Every event is different. Every event is going to have different challenges. But I think it's just really important to start looking at it. And I think maybe kind of entries in barriers to entry into looking at sustainability is obviously things like cost, but it's also I think a fear of being of getting it wrong, or it can be very overwhelming if you're starting out on your sustainability journey. But in the UK, actually, we a couple of years ago there was something called the Green Events Code of Practice, which was launched at our event at the Showman show, and it's a really it's like a minimum standards for outdoor events, and it's a really interesting thing to look at because it's and I encourage people to look at it actually because it's actually very achievable. You know, it's all about trying to reduce your emissions by 70% by 2030, and it gives you a really good, easy breakdown of the areas that you can tackle. So that could be like food, power, water, waste, and it's just a really good kind of step-by-step guide, and that's a really good starting point, and it's just to kind of go through that and just start your journey, and don't try and do things all at once because you will. It's difficult to. And I'm also a great believer that actually being sustainable doesn't have to cost you more money. There are certainly ways where you can save money. I mean, when we first started out our journey to being more sustainable, to improving our impact, just a simple audit of the power generation or the generators that we were using. It was just a simple conversation with our power supplier saying, are we overpowering our event? You know, have we, you know, can you just take a look at the usage of our generators? And basically within a year, we had managed to reduce our fuel consumption by 50% by just a simple conversation. And it's quite often that's the case with festivals and events. They are overpowered because of the contractor obviously wants to make sure that there's enough power. They're scared that, you know, obviously if the lights go off on the stage, you know, it's a showstopper. So often that, you know, events are overpowered. So just a simple conversation like that, you can, you know, you can improve your impact straight away. But yeah.
And the other thing is the technology has gotten better. So as more of these festivals turn to solar power, there are more companies that know how to do it, and they can do it more efficiently, and more people are trained. So it just becomes part of the ecosystem of what you're doing, and thus, you know, the sort of test case of trying to do it has already been proved, and we're further along in just incorporating it whole cloth into what we do.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes, so it's a tough subject, but really manageable for everyone who wants to do it. I want to ask you about your future plans here at the Future of Festivals. What are your plans for next year, for next edition?
One thing we're working on at the moment is to improve our accessibility at the show. Accessibility is a big issue, not issue. It's a big subject on the UK at the moment, and every event is trying to, you know, make their events more, you know, physically accessible to a wider audience. So this year we worked with a company called Accessible Events, and they audited our show and making sure, you know, there's enough ramps, enough disabled toilets, or accessible toilets rather. So we haven't waited for we're still waiting for the results. So that's something we'll be working on next year, and we may be fine. We may be doing our job fine, but it's good to review things, you know, because obviously things change, and yeah. So that's what we're up to.
Well, and I take an approach where each year I address a particular issue. When we came out of COVID, mental health was top of mind, and so I did a whole piece around what all of that looked like, and I do a lot around diversity. I believe diversity and inclusion is our future, despite what our country may be saying. I think giving young people the opportunity to step up and step forward, because that's where innovation will come from, and not just doing things the same old way, is really important. So I bring a lot of young, really bright voices from all different backgrounds into the conversation. It's really important. And I really think, I know this sounds sort of idiotic, but having fun is a really important part of what we do. And so in bringing together all of my folks, I spend a lot of time thinking about doing things that are fun. We do a lot of gamification and giveaways, and we have a calm lounge. And I look at other shows and say, what isn't working with their show? How can I use that and fix things within my show? Like, for instance, I don't know how many of these things you guys go to, but trying to figure out what the meeting point is. you spend more time on that than actually meeting. It's like Netflix. You spend more time figuring out what to watch than watching it. And so I try to fix those kinds of what I see as problems, but just continuing to grow. And I've gotten to the point now where if I ask someone from a major festival, will they come and speak, I always get a yes, which is a lot of, a big difference from when I started, when they were like, who are you? So just growing. And I say to all of you who are starting out in the industry, work hard, be honest, be smart, be earnest in all that you do, be humble, and you'll continue to grow. Listen, see what's going on, be aware of what's going on around you. And the use of technology has really aided us, I think, in probably me in growing my show without a marketing budget to speak of. So all of those things are sort of top of mind for me as I organize. And I've done most of the organization for the show, even though it's in February. It's pretty much up, and it's about 80% there.
Nice.
You can enjoy Christmas now.
That's really good. I still have a couple of questions, but now I want to ask the audience if they want to ask something in specific. If somebody has any question, you can raise your hand and we have a mic. If not, I can... well, look, okay, we have one.
Thank you. Hi everyone. I wanted to ask, you have the impact of the festival production. What is something you cannot miss at any festival in the production?
Toilets. Good toilets.
That's true.
Well,
That's
good toilets are important because the length of stay and the amount spent by the consumer is directly related to the experience with the toilet. But I think really having a safety protocol, a weather protocol, in the US, unfortunately, a weapons protocol. It's very important to have drug awareness, drug overdose awareness. When I first started in the business, no one would talk about the issue. But again, like I said, the most important thing is that your patrons go home. And, obviously you want good production, So there isn't really any one thing, but it's everything. And having a plan and thinking it through. One of the things we found out with all these disasters was that the decision maker might be the artist, and that's not really the appropriate person. So I think if you have a good insurance risk management team, they'll really help you in buttoning down those things so that you avoid the avoidable.
So yeah, I'd say yes. I mean, safety is an increasing topic. I mean, in the UK, next year we've got something called the terrorism bill, the protection of premises, which basically is going to be relevant to all event organisers, and it's basically everyone's because of the threat of terrorism. Increased threat of terrorism, and I think this isn't just a UK specific thing. I think it's going to be everyone, tightening up on security is definitely going to be something to watch. And also weather. We talk about climate change as if it's in the future, but climate has changed. We are living in different conditions now, more extreme weather, whether that be droughts in Spain or electrical storms in the US or just a wet, miserable summer like we have in the UK.
Like every time you go to Glastonbury?
Yeah, actually, the last few years, I think Glastonbury's been quite lucky, but I think it's the whole summer, the rest in the summer, it's just been wet and miserable. But it is factoring those things, it's, we have like kind of euphoric images of festivals, lovely sunshine and lovely everything, but the reality, weather is going to play an increasing part in production. So yeah, make sure you've got a good insurance policy, you've got good cover for those.
Thank you.
Here we are going to the second question.
Hello, sorry, it's so loud. Thank you for your time. My question is, How do you promote and market these conferences? Are there particular social media channels you use or strategies? Because I personally want to go to more of like these conferences to learn from people who have experience. So yeah, that's my question.
That's a really great question because a B2B, which is business to business, is very different than a B2C. So we can't use the traditional channels that we use. I personally love LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is a great tool. I've gotten a lot of my speakers. I do a lot of publishing. I go to conferences and speak at things like this. It's a real challenge to build awareness for this. I'm not a media company, I'm a conference company. A lot of conferences are media companies, like Billboard and Polestar. I don't know if you're familiar with them. So I would say do your research, Google it. I try to make sure that we're high up in the Google algorithms. I use retargeting quite a bit. But I compete with like South by Southwest, which is huge. I actually have South by Southwest coming, which is sort of meta. But you raise a great question, but I still say LinkedIn is the best tool for discovery.
Yeah, I'd agree actually. I mean, there's obviously industry press, so there are industry magazines, industry, event industry websites that you'll find out about these things. But we use a lot of social media now, so Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, all that. One of our biggest, most powerful tools of marketing is the attendees themselves. It's the exhibitors and the visitors. So we have, every time they register, they can just say, hey, we're going to this, and that's really successful. And that's definitely our form of marketing. But,
I mean, that's how we've grown, is through word of mouth. But for people like you who are breaking in, I don't think there's any better tool than LinkedIn that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I'd agree, yeah.
Me, from a social media manager, I would say also LinkedIn, because when I was attending a conference, I wanted to promote them on the Instagram, and they said that we don't have an Instagram account, but only LinkedIn. But I believe as a younger that we will need this also on Instagram and on Facebook more. I mean, yeah, LinkedIn is a very good platform, but for the promotions to get to the younger audience, you will need to use Instagram also.
Yeah, I agree, because I personally don't use LinkedIn that much unless I'm applying for jobs. But maybe I should use it more and do my research more.
Well, but that's for B2B, you see. We do have an active LinkedIn account, Instagram, and we post all the time. But that's to get festivals to come. But in terms of someone like you finding us, possibly you'd find us on Instagram or my Facebook was hacked. That's another story. But in terms of business and personal development, the trades are also really, really critical. So Variety and Billboard and what's the other one?
What in the UK?
Every day, the UK publication.
There's I'll name you. There's a publication called Stand Out. There's Access All Areas, who are I believe are here actually. There's also a website called Event Industry News. Those are the UK
IQ.
ones. IQ, yeah, IQ.
IQ is a good one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have another question?
Hi, I missed the start of the talk, sorry. So I'm not sure if it's already been talked about, but so I'm also here for looking for a job. And LinkedIn is also what I'm kind of using, but I'm also like, of course I'm going and talking to people who I would like to apply for, but I'm one of a lot of people, and I'm like, okay, how do I really get the job? Can I be remarkable or whatever? Because this is a different situation than a work situation, right?
It's a great question, and it's really hard to get a job cold. It just is. So one of the things I say to young people like you is intern, volunteer, like many of the folks here, And then when you meet someone, if you connect with someone on LinkedIn, you have access to their list. And if you see a company that interests you, ask them to make a warm introduction. The other thing is if you see someone like, I personally do this all the time, people will reach out to me. I will say, I'd like to know what it's like a day in your job. And I will always take a call from someone who's trying to get into the industry. I may not be able to get you a job, but I can give you maybe some advice about ways to network. And meeting people in real life. I could chase a sponsor for 5 years, and then I meet them in person, and I've closed it. So there's no substitute for going to things, and luckily because Europe is so much smaller than the U.S., you can get to more things. But yeah, those are just a couple of suggestions.
What kind of job are you looking for? That's what.
So I'm already in concert and festival management,
Yeah.
project management. I'm now in a more classical music area, but I would like to change that to bigger festivals.
I mean, it's so. I mean, our industry is so. It's very much about how you know, who you know, rather, and it's like
That's
it's
the
kind
problem.
of that's the but once you're in,
But
you're
we all
in.
started somewhere, didn't we?
Yeah, well, exactly. But I think you're volunteering. You know, just making yourself available. You know, staffing, crewing. You know, is that kind of thing. You know, volunteering on a festival site. You know, and make yourself available. And because so much of it's about trust, and people like working with you. You know, then you're in your job for life. But and actually, certainly in the UK, we're having a real issue with recruitment. So there's loads of jobs going on in the UK at the moment. Since dare I say it, Brexit, the industry's really struggled, and there's a big old push to bring in new talent. So
And once you're there, be the first one on the job site and the last one to leave. Don't feel the need to drink or do drugs while you're working. I know that sounds obvious, but I've had to fire someone every year. And anticipate every problem. When you become the solution person, you become invaluable to the organizer. And you can tell right away, very quickly, who are your best people on the job.
Yeah, without doubt.
And you'll always have a job if you are that person.
Yeah. We're using people that we've used for 40 years, basically. We're still working with them. They're almost to a point of retirement, and it's we're going to have to start recruiting again. But replacing that person who knows you and knows the event inside out is so valuable. But anyway.
I'll have a panel at 3 p.m. about volunteering and how you can get a job, because also I followed some steps. You can attend and I'll give you my insights. We won't have much time, so I want to ask you something. Going back to your background and the things that you did, can you share a memorable moment or unexpected partnership that you have and you are really grateful for it?
Well, when I was running a festival, we had Peter Gabriel, who I just love and adore. Some of you are probably too young to remember who he is, but he's one of the greatest artists of our day, and the creator of world music, and and one of the greatest songs he ever wrote was "In Your Eyes," and one of the most beautiful love songs of all time. And I just remember we were doing the sound check with him, and being in the room and being the only person in the room with him singing that song to me. So it's kind of silly, but that is still one of my favorite memories.
That's lovely. That's very nice. Yeah, he's a legend. We've had so many memorable moments. It's probably hard to recall or remember them all. But one personally, we had this paramilitary team called the Red Devils parachute into our events once. They were demonstrating, and it was a beautifully sunny day. And no one was expecting it. Well, we were. We knew that it was coming, but no one else did. And and they jumped out of a plane and they did their twirling and they landed right into the main of our event. And that was nice. That was a really good highlight. But, and
I have another one. Yeah. Last year we did something called Puppies Palooza, and nobody knew we were doing it. And we brought all the puppies in because you could adopt them. And you just go crazy for the puppies. Everyone still talks about it as their favorite event.
Animals are the winner, definitely. Yeah.
That's lovely. Yeah, you can have really, really nice memories working in the festival industry, like
without a
uncomparable. Something that money cannot buy in other industries. It's very beautiful. If you'd have to launch a festival tomorrow, what type would it be? Or would you? Would you not?
I think I probably would. I'd go for a well-being festival, something that nourishes the heart and soul, something. I think my partying days, real partying days are over. But yeah, something that nourishes the mind and soul. Yeah.
We need that.
I'm sort of at retirement age. So I'd like to have a grandmother festival.
Yeah, somebody should do one.
You found your niche. There you go.
Yes.
That's it.
Niche. It's my thing.
Okay, but for someone who is planning a festival, what's one piece of advice that is not that obvious, like something that you feel that people need to know about, that you want to share with them?
It's going to be harder than you think. It's going to cost more than you think. It's going to require more planning than you think. But there is the reward when you look out and you see the audience engaged with the artist that just will fill your heart and soul. It's sort of like having a baby. The whole experience is worse than you think, and yet you get the reward at the end. But I encourage everyone, and I think it's because of my legal training, to really create a plan, a business plan. Treat it like a business because it is a business. This is not a hobby. And make sure you have a business plan, a budget. A budget is your Bible, and stick to your budget. I always say don't fall in love with your talent, because that will get you in trouble. That's what gets most festivals in trouble, is they pay too much for talent. I think the future is finding emerging talent. I was reading Emily, what's her name, from Glasgow, talking about how there's no rock bands to buy, and I thought that's an awful statement. There's so many talented musicians out there, and so keep your eye and ear to that. So to me, really advanced planning and sticking to your plan and your timelines are so important.
I have to say, find good suppliers, that you trust, because and respect your suppliers as well, because they're the ones who are going to get you out of a fix. If when things go wrong, it's your suppliers that will help you and save the day, basically. And pay for your suppliers. Don't haggle them. Just don't go for the lowest price. Because essentially you pay cheap, you pay twice, as they say. So factor that into your budgets. But yeah, look after your suppliers because they'll look after you.
And good luck. Take care of yourself mentally and physically too. That I talk about that a lot. Everybody is just so harried, and not having enough sleep and energy and fuel in your body, and taking care of yourself mentally is really important, because you need to stay grounded. You need to make great decisions. Going to a festival is not the same as running a festival.
That's totally true. And yeah, you need to take care of your mind and body to give the best in those 3 days, let's say. If you have a normal festival, it's like 3 days. So yeah, we'll wrap this up. Thank you very, very much. It was a really nice conversation. Everybody, if you want to ask them more questions, you can find them around. You can find more on the internet about them, festforums.com, Johnny, the Showman show, everything about the conference and what are their plans for the next years. Thank you very much and see you around.
Das war das Panel mit dem Namen
The Impact of Festival Production Shows and Conferences.
Wenn ihr Kritik oder Fragen habt, dann schreibt uns gerne unter www.futureoffestivals.com. Wir sehen uns spätestens am Donnerstag, den 27. und Freitag, den 28. November 2025 in der Station Berlin. Bis dahin.